hundreds of years, the Christians were treated badly or even killed for believing in Jesus. Whenever they tried to go somewhere for safety, they were hunted down. Thousands of Christians hid in tombs. But even though they went through extremely difficult times, they never lost their faith. They lost everything in this world, but they never complained. They would encourage each other to make it through these times. They remembered what Jesus said, that when they were treated badly for his sake, they were to be very glad because they would have a great reward in heaven. It was pointless for Satan to destroy the church using violence. The gospel kept being spread and more people became Christians. Thousands of people were put in prison and killed, but other people became followers and took their place. These hard times they were going through brought them closer together and closer to Jesus. They were a good example while they were alive, and they stood for the truth even when they were dying. People that you would never think would be a Christian became Christians. So Satan came up with a new plan. He would trick them instead of force them. The bad treatment stopped. Now, there were people who believed part of what Christians believed, but they didn't want to accept other important truths. They tried to get the Christians to compromise so everyone could come together to believe in Jesus. Some Christians would not compromise, but others thought it was a good idea to change some things about their beliefs and get together with those that accepted some of their beliefs. They hoped that eventually they would accept everything later on. In the end, most of the Christians gave in and lowered their standard. So now, Christians and half-believers came together. The half-believers said they changed, but they didn't want to give up their idols, so they just changed the names of their idols to Christian names like Jesus and Mary. Now, all these false teachings started coming into the church. Superstitions and idol ceremonies were being included in their worship. The church began to grow weak, but not everyone was fooled by these errors. There's always been these two kinds of groups that say they're Christians. Those that study Jesus' life and really try to change their bad habits so they can be more like Jesus, and another group that ignore the truth. Jesus said that people who sin on purpose shouldn't be accepted into the church. But still, he spent time with people who had faults and taught them. He was a good example so they might have a chance to see their errors and change. People who hang on to evil while saying they're Christians hate the ones who try to correct them. While the church was being persecuted, it was the genuine Christians that remained. Once persecution stopped, less genuine people started coming into the church, and Satan was able to take advantage of this. The ones that knew how to go against the Christian faith the most were the ones who used to be Christians themselves. They attacked the most important teachings of Jesus. The true Christians knew they had to separate from the half-believers if they wanted to be faithful to God's word. For them to allow the errors was dangerous for both them, their children, and those who would come after them. It wasn't even worth it to keep peace and unity with the half-believers if that meant they were going to go against God's word. It's becoming popular to think that what the Bible teaches isn't important. More and more false teachings are being taught that the early Christians would have risked their lives to resist and expose. But now, thousands of people who say they're Christians are accepting these false teachings. The early Christians' behavior and constant faithfulness were a rebuke to sinners because they didn't want to give up their sin. And even now, they hate and go against the true Christians. So how come the gospel is supposed to be a message of peace? When Isaiah talked about Jesus coming, he called him the Prince of Peace. But in another verse, Jesus said he didn't come to send peace, but a sword. Those Bible verses seem to go against each other, but both are true. If you obey the Bible, it will bring peace. But for those who don't obey the Bible, the truth offends them and they begin to hate and argue with true believers. That's why it's also called a sword. It seems strange that bad things happen to good people and bad people get away with so much. How can God stand all this abuse? We have to remember that Jesus suffered more than any of us by wicked people. So when we go through hard times, we're just following Jesus' footsteps. God didn't forget about his people. He's letting the wicked show what they're really like so that no one will be fooled who wants to obey him. The faithful are put through hard times so they can come out stronger, and they will be a good example to others. It will also condemn the sinners. While it seems all is going well for the wicked, God is allowing it, and He's letting them show their hatred toward Him so everyone will see that He is fair and merciful when they are destroyed. Whatever wrong acts they do to God's faithful followers, they're going to be punished as though they did it to Jesus. Another good question is this: how come it doesn't look like Christians are treated badly these days? It's because Christians are acting like non-believers that no one is getting upset at them, and because they're compromising what they believe that they're liked by others. But if people began living their lives like the early Christians, we'll start seeing persecution again.